Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. It has been Clone Nation Station here lately. Just clone fragrances on top of clone fragrances. Basically, you can't escape them. They're like the Terminator. They're starting to get pretty close to the real thing. They're starting to blend in to where you can't tell, is that a clone or the real thing? It can be dangerous. Is that a Terminator, or is that just a person who's excited to see me, or is it a Terminator? It's kind of like that, except not as high stakes. Today, we are speaking about a clone, once again, of course, and this one is called Voux Elegante. You gotta like this kind of reimagining of a Xerjoff bottle, don't you? Give it this frosted glass look, and it looks kind of weird. Like a bird's body with its wings tucked in, or maybe just a guy and his shoulders are kind of coming out and he's got his hands in his pockets. I don't know. This is a clone of Xerjoff's Naxos, one of the most popular tobacco niche fragrances on the market. And in today's video, of course, like always, I will let you know how good the clone is. I'll show you the presentation, give you the price, all that stuff. So let's jump into it. This is from Paris Corner, their Emir line of fragrances, which has some clones that are pretty good. I've gotten some from this house, this line, that are well done, and then some other ones are not quite as nice. I will have this fragrance linked in the description below in case you want to check it out, like always. I got my bottle from fragrancebuy.ca. It was right around $38 US. I think just below 38 US, but that price is going to fluctuate depending on conversion rate from Canadian to US dollars, unless you're in Canada. And then it's just always the same Canadian price. Also, I want to remind you, if you shop at twistedlily.com or maxaroma.com, use the code GENTS10 for 10% off your order. And my fragrances, all three of them, Jet Black Enigma, Blue Ridge, Terra Nova, are in every Perfumania and fragrance outlet store in the United States. Feel free to go in and check them out. Or you can order them from Michael Molol's website using the code GENTS10 for 20% off your order. All right. Presentation, let's check it out. So here we got the front of the box. You have the name of the fragrance, you have the concentration, and you have the Emir logo. Nothing on the sides. You have the logo once again up on top. On the back, you have your ingredient information, your size, 100 mils, and a little sticker up in the corner that is your sticker of authenticity. Then on the bottom, your badge code and your barcode. Expiration date 04/27. And here we have the bottle up close and personal, so you can see that unique Xerjoff-ish design that it has. A little sticker on the front that has the name of the fragrance in the house. Kind of like a faux metal sticker. Nothing on the back. On the bottom, you have a simple sticker. The cap has decent weight to it, actually. It's kind of all concentrated on the top right here, weight-wise, but yeah, nice heft. And let's share a couple sprays. Why don't we? So you can check out the atomizer. Here we go. Kind of par for the course as far as clone fragrance atomizers go. Like, not horrifically terrible, but not good. And you gotta love this, the Paris Corner stamp on top of the atomizer. Frankly, I think these would look better without the Paris Corner stamp on top of the atomizer. It looks really cheap. It's off center. It's not a good look. I get it, you know, Emir is part of Paris Corner, like it's underneath that umbrella, but gotta get rid of that. That looks bad. So, as I said, this is a clone of Naxos, which is great. People love this stuff. I love this stuff. This is the old bottle style. If you buy this new nowadays, the bottle looks like that right here. So then, you know, you could say, well, the bottle looks like that nowadays, so this bottle design makes more sense, right? It's a little bit closer to that than it is to this. But yeah, Naxos, wonderful fragrance. For a long time, it was basically compared to Mugler's Pure Havane. And it was said that if you liked Pure Havane, you should get Naxos because that's like the next level. It's a similar style of tobacco, a honeyed tobacco, a sweet tobacco with a little aromatic tinge to it, but Naxos, that was the pinnacle. If you couldn't get Naxos, you would get Pure Havane, which honestly, Pure Havane was absolutely fantastic on its own right. I loved Pure Havane. Shout out to Mugler for discontinuing Pure Havane. Gotta love it. It's one of the best designers ever. It's just discontinue it. Naxos is not cheap, but I have seen it at discounters for around $150 before. So you can get it for what I consider to be a pretty good price, all things considered, as far as the wearability and the quality of the fragrance. So I guess the question here is this close enough to Naxos to replace it or to wear in place of it? And is the price difference worth it to get Naxos over this? Now, with a lot of clones that have been coming out here lately, they're getting so close to the OG that in the air, it's difficult to tell any difference at all. With these two, there are some differences though that I can pick up on pretty much right away. So when you first spray the two fragrances on, Voux Elegante is not as sweet as Naxos. Naxos has much more of a pronounced sweetness to it. The way the tobacco comes across, the honey that it has is much more noticeable than in the clone. So that honey, that sweet cinnamon, that tonka, that kind of vanilla mixture with the tobacco leaves in Naxos, that comes through much more clearly. What you have in Voux Elegante is instead a little bit rougher around the edges. It's not as smooth as the Xerjoff, and it also has more of an aromatic flair to it. It's like you took the sweetness and like dialed it down kind of across all the notes that could convey sweetness, and you ramped up the aromatic slightly and you ramped up the cashmerean. That's kind of how it comes across. So it's got a little more of a fuzziness to it, especially in the opening, as compared to the real deal. And I would say even through the mid, that Naxos is more full-bodied than Voux Elegante is. Now, it's not that this is a bad fragrance or a bad clone, it's just even through the mid, where a lot of times clone fragrances, as they come down out of that opening, will start to kind of squeeze together a little bit and get a little more similar. That doesn't happen quite as much with these two. I mean, you do get the tobacco from Voux Elegante. You get, as I said, a little more ramped up cashmerean as it heads through the mid, but it's lacking a little bit of that depth of sweetness that Naxos has. And that's one of the things that helps set Naxos apart, is it's this multifaceted sweetness combining with that tobacco. That's what gives it that wearability, because it's not rough at all. It's just almost like a sticky, sweet tobacco leaf, and it smells great. I mean, people love Naxos. That's why still to this day, it's one of Xerjoff's most popular fragrances, if not their most popular. You could think of Voux Elegante though as like a slightly more fresh take on Naxos, if you wanted to approach it that way. Now I say that it's not a whole lot fresher or anything, it's just where that sweetness is toned down a little bit. You could think of it as like a swap of sorts. Now once you do hit the far dry down, they do get closer at that point, and Voux Elegante has that tobacco leaf with a little sweetness coming out, but still yet, even into the far dry down, Naxos is going to be a little sweeter on the whole. Now I know it sounds like maybe this is not super close to Naxos, but it is. You can tell that this is a Naxos clone, and it is well done overall. It doesn't come across abrasive. It doesn't come across smelling overtly chemically or anything like that. It doesn't come across smelling super cheap, though depending on your personal taste, that bottle might look a little cheap, or you might think it looks really cool. I don't know. Now, one thing I will say with Voux Elegante is that at the price point, again, about $38, give or take, depending on conversion, it's not your best bang for buck clone that's out there. You can get clones in the $20 range, $25 range that are going to get you closer to what they're emulating, or give you kind of a twist on a fragrance that I think are a little bit more well done overall than this one is at $38. To me, when I smell this, it comes across more like something I would want to pay, like $25, something like that. Now I know that's sounding really cheap, but it's just comparing to some of the other things out there in this price range. There are other ones that I think would be a little more attractive for me. That said though, when it comes to Naxos, there's really not that much out there. When we're talking quality clones of Naxos, I think this is pretty much your best bet. So while I do wish that maybe it was a little sweeter, while I do wish that the honey and the cinnamon were more pronounced in this than they are, as far as Naxos clones go, it's gonna be your best bet. The only other one that I could say that could be interesting to you is Insurrection 2 Wild, but that is more a clone of Pure Havan. It'll get you close-ish to Naxos, but for right now, this one is going to be the best one on the market. Now, in terms of performance, it's good, but it is not as good as Naxos. Naxos lasts longer off my skin. It projects better off my skin. This one sits a little closer than Naxos does. It doesn't last as long. And when I was wearing these side by side, it was pretty noticeable that Naxos had a little more push to it. So while the performance of Voux Elegante is pretty good, it's not amazing. And do keep in mind the atomizer here, you know, it's not a huge blast of fragrance. So with this one, and this goes for a lot of other clone fragrances, not just this one, because a lot of them use a similar atomizer. You may want to keep that in mind and make sure that you spray enough on. In terms of seasons, fall, winter, early spring, and as far as daytime or nighttime use goes, I think most people would say it leans a little more toward nighttime use, but for me, it's evenly split. Especially comparing this one to Naxos not being quite as sweet, I think you can pull this off during the day just as well as the evening. So there we go, Voux Elegante. There are some positives here, there are some negatives here. On the whole, it's a nice alternative to Naxos. I wish there were a few tweaks and changes, but as I said before, this is really your best bet right now. If you want a cheap Naxos alternative, this is the one to get. And maybe this kind of opens the floodgates a little bit, you know, and the other clone houses come out with their version of Naxos, and maybe they give us that sweetness back. And to be clear here, it's not devoid of sweetness. It's just compared to Naxos, there's a noticeable difference. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thank you for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I will see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.